Here's what nobody tells you. The emptiness you feel isn't from lacking things. It's from wanting too many of them at once. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, the wanting begins. You want the day to go well. You want that message to be waiting for you. You want the number on the scale to be different. You want more money. You want more time. You want someone to understand you. You want to be further along than you are. And all of this hits you in the first 60 seconds of consciousness, before you've even had a glass of water. Most people call this a morning. The Stoics would call it a surrender. Here's the costly mistake most people make. They think the solution to feeling empty is to fill the space. Get more. Achieve more. Become more. And so they run. They run toward the next promotion, the next relationship, the next purchase, the next version of themselves. And the emptiness doesn't leave. It just gets louder. Because the problem was never that you didn't have enough. The problem was that you wanted too much. Let me say that again, because it's the single most important thing you need to hear. The emptiness you feel isn't from lacking things. It's from wanting too many of them at once. That's the thesis. That's the whole thing. And everything I'm about to tell you orbits that one idea. Think about what desire actually is. Not the word. Not the philosophical concept. The felt experience of it. When you want something, what happens inside you? There's a tightening. A reaching. A low-grade hum of dissatisfaction with the present moment. You're not here. You're there. You're in the future, in the having, in the after. And the present, the only place you actually exist, becomes a waiting room. A hallway you pass through on your way to the real thing. Naval Ravikant put this in a way that stopped me in my tracks the first time I heard it. He said every desire you have is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get it. Read that again in your mind. A contract with yourself to be unhappy until you get something. That's what desire is. Not a dream. Not ambition. Not hope. A contract with unhappiness. And most people, without realizing it, have signed dozens of these contracts simultaneously. They want the better job and the better body and the better apartment and the better partner and the better reputation and the better life. And they wonder why they feel stretched thin. They wonder why they wake up tired. They wonder why nothing ever feels like enough. Here's why. Because it isn't enough. It can't be enough. Not because what you have is insufficient. But because the wanting mechanism is broken. You've signed too many contracts with unhappiness, and they're all active at once. Each one pulling you in a different direction. Each one whispering that the present moment is inadequate. And so you live in a state of permanent low-grade dissatisfaction, and you call it ambition. You call it drive. You call it having high standards. But the Stoics had a different name for it. They called it slavery. Seneca, who was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, who had access to more luxury than most people in history will ever see, wrote about this with a clarity that cuts through 2,000 years of noise. He said the problem isn't wealth itself. The problem is needing wealth. The problem isn't having nice things. The problem is that you can't be happy without them. And that distinction, between having and needing, between enjoying and depending on, is the entire architecture of freedom. Think about it. If you enjoy a nice dinner but you'd be just as content with a simple one, the nice dinner is a gift. It's a bonus. It adds something to a life that's already full. But if you need the nice dinner to feel okay, if the simple one makes you feel deprived, then the nice dinner isn't a pleasure anymore. It's a chain. You don't own the dinner. The dinner owns you. And this applies to everything. Your salary. Your relationship. Your social status. Your appearance. Your possessions. The Stoics had a precise term for these things. They called them preferred indifference. Not good, not bad. Just things. Nice to have. Not necessary. And the test of whether something is a preferred indifferent or a chain is simple. Ask yourself, could I be okay without this? Not could I survive. Could I be okay? Could I still respect myself? Could I still find meaning in my day? Could I still look the person in the mirror and say, I'm fine? If the answer is yes, you hold it loosely. If the answer is no, you don't hold it at all. It holds you. Most people never ask this question. They just accumulate. They accumulate things and desires and ambitions and expectations, and they never once stop to ask, do I own this, or does this own me? And so they build a life that looks full from the outside but feels hollow from the inside. Because it's not built on what they value. It's built on what they want. And wanting and valuing are not the same thing. Wanting is reactive. It's triggered by advertising, by social comparison, by insecurity, by boredom. Valuing is intentional. It's chosen. It reflects who you've decided to be, not what you've been told to chase. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. Most of what you want, you don't actually want. You want it because you saw someone else have it. You want it because it would make you look a certain way. You want it because you think it will fill a gap that it can't fill. The gap isn't out there. It's in here. And no amount of external acquisition can close an internal gap. That's not philosophy. That's mechanics. You can't fix a leaky pipe by pouring more water through it. Epictetus understood this with a clarity that's almost brutal. He was born a slave. He was physically disabled. He had nothing by modern standards. And yet he taught that the surest path to misery is desiring things outside your control, and the surest path to tranquility is desiring only your own virtue and excellence of character. Think about what that means. He wasn't saying don't want anything. He was saying want wisely. Want what you can guarantee. Want what no one can take from you. Want to be honest. Want to be courageous. Want to be disciplined. Want to be kind. These are desires that depend on nothing external. No market crash can take them. No rejection can remove them. No aging, no loss, no betrayal can strip them from you. They are yours to cultivate and yours to keep. And here's the paradox. When you shift your desires from external things to internal qualities, something strange happens. The external things stop mattering so much. Not because you've given up on life. But because you've stopped outsourcing your well-being to things you can't control. And when you stop doing that, you start to feel something you maybe haven't felt in a long time. You start to feel free. But there's another layer here. A deeper one. Because even if you narrow your desires, even if you focus on what you can control, there's still a problem that haunts all of us. And it's called hedonic adaptation. It's the tendency of the human mind to take for granted whatever it has. You get the thing you wanted. For a moment, maybe a day, maybe a week, you feel it. The satisfaction. The relief. The sense of finally. And then it fades. The new car becomes the car. The new job becomes the job. The new relationship becomes the relationship. And you're back where you started. Wanting the next thing. Already drafting the next contract with unhappiness. This is the enemy. Not desire alone, but desire plus adaptation. You want, you get, you adapt, you want again. It's a wheel. And most people are on it their entire lives without ever realizing they're not going anywhere. The Stoics had an antidote to this. It's a practice that sounds strange when you first hear it, but once you try it, once you feel what it does to your mind, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. The practice is called negative visualization. And here's how it works. You take something you have right now. Something you care about. Your home. Your health. A person you love. Your ability to see, to hear, to walk. And you imagine losing it. Not in a morbid, obsessive way. Just for a moment. You let yourself feel what it would be like if that thing were gone. If the person didn't call back. If the body stopped working. If the roof over your head disappeared. You sit with that for 30 seconds. A minute. And then you come back. You open your eyes. You look at what's in front of you. And something shifts. The thing that was invisible a moment ago, the thing you'd stopped seeing because it was so familiar, suddenly becomes vivid. The coffee tastes different. The room looks different. The person next to you feels different. Not because anything changed. But because you briefly experienced its absence, and that experience reawakened something that adaptation had put to sleep. Gratitude. But not the kind of gratitude that's a hashtag. Not the kind you write in a journal because a self-help book told you to. The kind that hits you in the chest. The kind that comes from genuinely understanding, for a moment, what it would mean to not have what you have. That's negative visualization. And it's not pessimism. It's the opposite. It's the most powerful optimism there is, because it roots you in the present and makes the present feel like more than enough. Seneca, despite his immense wealth, would periodically set aside his fine clothes and his rich food and his comfortable furnishings, and he would live simply. He would eat basic food. Sleep on a hard surface. Wear coarse fabric. And he would ask himself, is this really the worst thing? Is this really so bad? And the answer, every time, was no. He could survive it. He could even find a kind of peace in it. And that knowledge, that lived, embodied proof that he didn't need the luxury, that the luxury was a preferred indifferent and not a chain, gave him a freedom that no amount of money could buy. He wasn't practicing poverty because he thought poverty was virtuous. He was practicing poverty because he wanted to know, really know, in his bones, that he was not dependent on wealth. And that knowledge, that internal certainty, is what made him powerful. Not rich. Powerful. Because a person who can lose everything and still be okay is a person who cannot be controlled. Cannot be manipulated. Cannot be broken by fortune's reversals. That person is free in a way that no external circumstance can touch. And here's where this becomes personal for you. Because I don't know your specific situation. I don't know what you have or what you've lost. But I know this. You are carrying more desires than you need. You are signed up for more contracts with unhappiness than you realize. And each one is costing you. Each one is pulling your attention away from the life you actually have and toward a life you don't. Each one is whispering that right now isn't enough. That you aren't enough. That you need something more, something else, something different to finally feel whole. And you still don't feel whole. You still don't feel like you. Because the solution was never out there. It was never in the getting. It was always in the letting go. Let me give you something practical. Something you can do today. Not a theory. Not a principle. A behavior. Pick one desire. Just one. Something you've been chasing. Something that's been sitting in the back of your mind, humming, taking up space. Maybe it's a certain income level. Maybe it's a specific relationship outcome. Maybe it's a version of your body. Maybe it's a status marker, a possession, a milestone. Pick one. And for one day, let it go. Not forever. Just for today. Say to yourself, today, I don't want that. Today, I'm not signed up for that contract. Today, I'm okay without it. And then notice what happens. What you'll find, almost immediately, is a sense of space. A loosening. Like a rope that was pulling you in a direction you didn't consciously choose, and you just let go of it. And in that space, in that loosening, you'll start to notice things you'd stopped noticing. The taste of your food. The sound of the wind. The feeling of your own breathing. The presence of people who are already in your life. You'll start to feel something that doesn't come from acquiring anything. You'll start to feel like you have enough. Not because anything changed. But because you stopped telling yourself that you didn't. That's the secret. That's the whole thing. Having enough is not a condition. It's a decision. It's a stance you take toward your life. It's the choice to stop reaching for what you don't have long enough to actually experience what you do. And when you make that choice, even once, even for a day, you'll realize something that changes everything. You were never empty. You were never incomplete. You were just so busy wanting that you couldn't feel your own fullness. Now, I'm not telling you to want nothing. That's a misunderstanding. The Stoics weren't asking you to become a corpse. They were asking you to want wisely instead of desperately. To prefer without needing. To enjoy without depending. To pursue without being enslaved by the pursuit. There's a difference between preference and desire, and it's the difference between freedom and chains. Preference says, I'd like that. It would be nice. But I'm okay without it. Desire says, I need that. I can't be happy without it. My well-being depends on it. Preference is light. Desire is heavy. Preference is open-handed. Desire is a fist. And most people live with their fists clenched so tightly they've forgotten what open hands feel like. So here's the practice. Start opening your hands. Start loosening your grip. Not on life. On wanting. Each time you notice a desire that isn't essential, that isn't aligned with who you've decided to be, that's just noise, just inherited ambition, just someone else's dream wearing your face, let it go. Drop the contract. Cancel the subscription to unhappiness. And use that energy, that freed up attention, that reclaimed bandwidth, to actually be here. To actually live the life that's happening right now, in this moment, instead of the one you're constantly projecting into the future. Because here's the truth. The life you're waiting for, the one that starts when you get the thing, when you reach the level, when you achieve the milestone, that life is a ghost. It doesn't exist. It will never exist. Because when you get there, you'll already be wanting the next thing. The finish line keeps moving. That's the nature of desire unchecked. It's not a path to a destination. It's a treadmill. And you can run on it forever and never arrive. The only way to arrive is to step off. And stepping off doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing. Choosing what matters. Choosing what's worth wanting. Choosing one thing, maybe two, and letting the rest fall away. Not because the rest is bad. Because the rest is costing you. Every desire you carry is a tax on your attention, on your peace, on your ability to be present. And you're paying taxes on things you don't even use. Desires you don't even remember signing up for. Inherited from your parents. Absorbed from your culture. Imported from Instagram. You're paying for all of it. And the bill is your peace of mind. So audit your desires. Sit down, maybe tonight, maybe now, and list them. Not your goals. Your desires. The things you feel you need in order to be okay. The things that are conditions on your happiness. And look at each one. Ask yourself, is this mine? Did I choose this? Or did I absorb it? Ask yourself, if I never got this, could I still have a meaningful life? Could I still be someone I respect? And if the answer is yes, and it usually is, let it go. Not the thing. The need for the thing. Keep the preference. Drop the dependency. This is how you want less. Not by depriving yourself. Not by pretending you don't care. But by getting honest about what's actually essential and what's just noise. And when you strip away the noise, when you cancel the unnecessary contracts, when you narrow your wanting down to the things that truly matter, something miraculous happens. The world expands. Not because you got more. But because you stopped needing more. And a person who doesn't need more is a person who already has enough. That's not poverty. That's the architecture of abundance. Think about the wealthiest person you know. Not the richest. The wealthiest. The person who seems to lack nothing. Not because they have everything, but because they want for nothing. That's true wealth. It's not measured in what you possess. It's measured in what you don't need. The person who needs little is invincible. The person who needs much is always one loss away from collapse. And here's what this is costing you right now, if you don't change. It's costing you your life. Not in a dramatic sense. In a quiet one. You're losing the present moment, over and over, thousands of times a day, to wanting. You're missing the taste of your food because you're thinking about what's next. You're missing the sound of your child's voice because you're checking your phone. You're missing the feeling of being alive because you're so busy trying to get somewhere that you never arrive. And one day, you'll look back, and you'll realize that you spent the only life you have reaching for things that, once obtained, didn't even feel like you thought they would. And the moments you skipped over, the ordinary, unremarkable moments that you were too busy wanting to notice, those were the life. Those were the whole thing. The Stoics understood this. They didn't just think about it. They lived it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, the Emperor of Rome, wrote to himself every morning about the importance of staying small in his own mind. About not being seduced by the grandeur of his position. About remembering that he was just a man, mortal, limited, and that the purple robe and the throne were not who he was. He practiced negative visualization constantly. He reminded himself that the people he loved would die. That his power would end. That his body would fail. Not to depress himself. To wake himself up. To keep the present moment vivid. To never let familiarity dull the staggering fact that he was alive, right now, and that this was enough. Epictetus, the slave, taught the same thing from the opposite end of the social spectrum. He had nothing. No wealth, no status, no physical comfort that he could count on. And from that position, he discovered something that eludes most people who have everything. He discovered that the only thing you truly need is your own character. Your own integrity. Your own ability to choose how you respond to what happens. And that everything else, every comfort, every pleasure, every possession, is a guest. Welcome when it arrives. Not mourned when it leaves. And Seneca, the wealthy statesman, lived in the tension between abundance and detachment. He enjoyed his wealth. He didn't pretend it didn't matter. But he also practiced letting it go, regularly, deliberately, so that it never became his master. He understood something that most people never grasp. Luxury is not the opposite of simplicity. Dependency is the opposite of simplicity. You can live in a palace and be simple, if the palace doesn't own you. And you can live in a hut and be enslaved, if the hut is all you can think about. So the question isn't how much do you have. The question is, how much do you need? And the gap between those two, the gap between what you have and what you need, that gap is where your suffering lies. Not because the gap is real, but because you've convinced yourself it is. You've told yourself a story about what you need in order to be okay. And that story is the problem. Not your circumstances. Your story about your circumstances. Change the story. Tell yourself a different one. Tell yourself, I have what I need. Tell yourself, this is enough. Not as an affirmation. Not as a lie. As a choice. As a stance. As a way of standing in relation to your life that says, I'm not going to wait for more to start living. I'm not going to outsource my peace to a future that may never come. I'm here. Now. And here is where I begin. And then practice it. Practice negative visualization. Spend 30 seconds imagining the loss of something you take for granted. Your sight. Your hearing. The person sitting next to you. The roof over your head. Let yourself feel the absence. And then come back. And feel the presence. And notice how the presence, the same presence that was invisible a moment ago, now feels like a gift. Practice voluntary discomfort. Skip a meal. Take a cold shower. Sleep on the floor for one night. Go a day without your phone. Not to punish yourself. To prove to yourself that you can. To build the embodied knowledge that you are not dependent on comfort. That comfort is a preferred indifferent. Nice to have. Not necessary. And that the person who knows this, who has tested it, who has lived it, is free in a way that comfort can never provide. Practice narrowing your desires. Choose one thing. One primary pursuit. One direction. And let the others go. Not forever. For now. For this season. Give your full attention to one thing instead of giving partial attention to 10. And watch what happens. Watch the quality of your engagement change. Watch the depth of your effort change. Watch the satisfaction change. Because partial wanting produces partial living. And full wanting, wanting one thing with your whole self, produces a full life. And here's the thing that ties it all together. The thing I want you to carry with you after this ends. Reducing your desires is not about less. It's about more. More presence. More depth. More appreciation. More of the life you already have but are too distracted to experience. You don't want less because less is better. You want less because less clears the space for what actually matters. And what matters is not what you acquire. What matters is who you become. What matters is whether you can sit quietly with yourself and feel complete. Not because you have everything, but because you've stopped needing everything to feel complete. That's the Stoic path. Not poverty. Not deprivation. Not joylessness. The opposite of all of that. It's the path of someone who has discovered that the source of wholeness is internal. That abundance is not a condition of your circumstances but a quality of your attention. That the moment you stop wanting what you don't have is the moment you finally experience what you do. The emptiness you feel isn't from lacking things. It's from wanting too many of them at once. And the moment you let those wants go, the moment you cancel those contracts with unhappiness, the moment you narrow your wanting to what is essential and true and within your control, the emptiness doesn't just fade. It transforms. It becomes fullness. Not the fullness of having more. The fullness of being here. Of being awake. Of being, for maybe the first time in a long time, truly present in your own life. So let go. Not of life. Of wanting. Open your hands. Breathe. Look around you. The life you've been searching for is the life you're already living. You just couldn't see it through the fog of everything you thought you needed. The fog is clearing now. And what's left, what was always left, what was there before the wanting began and what will be there after the wanting ends, is you. Whole. Enough. Already complete. Stay rooted. Choose presence over pursuit. And remember, the moment you stop reaching is the moment you finally arrive.